Hello, I'm your host, Brian Callanan. The Seattle City Council has its largest influx of new members in more than a century. How are they settling into the job after a political battle to select another new member for the vacant position 8? And what priorities are they bringing to their new roles as leaders of the council's committees? I'm with Councilmembers Saka, Hollingsworth, and Rivera next on Council Edition.
We have a huge public safety problem in Seattle across the board.
We're really heavily focused on the constituent services piece as well.
24% of communities in Seattle don't have, residents don't have a sidewalk in their neighborhood. We need to change that.
All that and more coming up next on City Inside Out, Council Edition. And here they are. We have them with us, Councilmember Rob Saka from District 1. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
All right. And we also have with us Joy Hollingsworth, the Councilmember from District 3. Good to see you, too.
Likewise. Thank you.
And finally, Councilmember Maritza Rivera from District 4. Appreciate you coming, too.
Thank you for having me.
All right, here your first ever Council Edition show. This is exciting stuff here. I want to ask off the top, if you could just give people an idea of what it's been like behind the scenes on the second floor of City Hall, because there were certain things you could not do before you were sworn in on January 2nd, like hiring staff, getting things set. I just want to give people an idea of what the pace of this job has been like since you started the beginning of January here. Can you give people an idea about that? Councilmember Saka, let me start with you.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. So at a very, very high level, well, I'll say this, the pace has been fairly frantic right now.
Yeah.
We're just constantly,
drinking from the fire hose.
Constantly going, boom, boom, boom. We are on high speed at all times. But it's been I'll say from my perspective, it's been a very collaborative process, getting to work side by side with some very talented people working towards the same goal of pursuing the city's best interests. And, you know, through the lens of our own district. But for me, just hiring my staff, getting that set up, going through a lot of really, really important but foundational trainings from our various experts and central staff, you know, understanding various office infrastructure challenges and opportunities, working on committee assignments.
Sure.
So those are the type of things that we've been doing, like kind of behind the scenes to make sure foundationally that you know, we are able to start January 1 and kind of hit the ground running.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Councilmember Hollingsworth, let's talk about some of the challenges that you've been facing settling into this job. And I'm not trying to bust you out here, but I went into your office a couple of weeks ago and like office furniture. There's a chair and there's a plant, and that was about it. I just wanted to try to talk about what it's been like settling in and figuring out what this job is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, that's all I need, a chair and a plant.
That's right.
And a desk.
Yeah.
Super big on functionality and not so focused on aesthetics. But I think the biggest thing for us that we've learned so far, everything that Councilmember Saka talked about, we've experienced the same thing. I think we all have. But what's most importantly for us, for District 3, has been literally the backlog of the emails that we've gotten from constituent services, which is huge. So we're really heavily focused on the constituent services piece as well. I know we all are, but we've had a backlog of that.
Okay, got it. Councilmember Rivera, I just wanted to put this in perspective because we have so many new members on the City Council this year, 6 of them, more than the city has ever had since 1911, more than a century. I know it's a new group. It's a lot of energy in this group, but it's a group that kind of gets to know, you got to get to know each other, feel each other out. Let me know what it's like been moving into this job, please.
You know, Brian, because we're all new, we actually met on the campaign trail and we had the opportunity to establish relationships, which I feel really fortunate coming into a job where you've had the opportunity for a year to establish working relationships with the people that you hope were going to win and you were going to be able to work with. So it's been, to Councilmember Saka's point, very collaborative. I'm very just joyful even to be working with Councilmember Saka and Councilmember Hollingsworth and the other new council members, and with the 2 council members that also won in their races but are incumbents.
Right.
And so it's been very collaborative. One thing that I've been really excited about is the fact that we're all all in person.
Yeah.
All of us are in person, and our staffs are in person, and that has given us the opportunity to further work on establishing those relationships and just go into each other's offices and have a quick minute conversation. That is all super important at the beginning to really have. If you can establish those working relationships early on, it is really beneficial when you start to do the difficult work of the job.
Thank you. And I wanted to talk about a very big job the council's been through over the past couple weeks, finding a replacement for outgoing Councilmember Teresa Mosqueda, who was elected to the King County Council. There were 72 candidates who applied for this citywide Position 8 job. The list was narrowed down to 8 people. Eventually, the council picked Tanya Woo, who narrowly lost to Councilmember Morales in a bid for the District 2 seat in November. As expected, this turned into a big political battle behind the scenes. Several media outlets reporting about this, business, labor groups trying to push for a candidate matching their interests. Councilmember Rivera, let me talk to you about this to start. What were the factors that went into your decision supporting Councilmember Woo for this job?
Thank you, Brian. Well, I'll say that my staff and I reviewed all 72 candidates. I felt very strongly that out of respect, it is really hard to put yourself out there, and out of respect for all 72 candidates, or applicants, I should say, we reviewed all the resumes. And then I was looking for someone that would work well with us to do the hard work. We have a budget deficit, someone who understands finance, has experience on budgeting, someone that understands the importance of constituent services, because we are here to represent our respective districts and then the city as a whole. So someone who understands that, that's what I was looking for, that type of experience, and someone who has shown that they're doing the work in community similar to the work that they'll be doing on this job.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hollingsworth, I know you chose Lin Tai for this job. You were outvoted during the process. Tanya Woo, of course, won the seat. I just wanted to ask, what's it going to be like working with a candidate you did not choose? What's that like?
Look, Tanya and I, we go way back. We learned about each other, connected with each other on the campaign trail. I think she's a phenomenal asset to the other 8 members on the council. I've gotten to know her and her community very, very well. We also, both growing up in Seattle, you're only a couple degrees of separation from knowing like the same type of same people. And so I'm looking forward to working with her. I think she's phenomenal. She represents a community that has been significantly underserved in our city, but represent 18% of the population in our city. And she's always talked about just getting to work and being able to grind and really serve our community. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, an important connection for the CID, that's for sure. Councilmember Saka, I know we heard from Councilmember Morales from the dais speak to some of her concerns about selecting a new council member. Here's a brief clip of that.
I am disappointed in how this process turned out. This appointment process should have been set up to give all candidates a fair shake. It should have been about identifying someone who can hit the ground running, someone who can deliver for the entire city. But instead, it did become about big business telling donors that they earned the right to tell this council who to choose. And that is deeply problematic, and it is anti-democratic.
What was your reaction to what she said? Talk to us about your decision when it came to selecting Tanya Woo.
Yeah, so I can talk about my decision into selecting Councilmember Woo. I also had the privilege of getting to know Tanya during the campaign trail. We all did. And just for what it's worth, I think that opportunity to start to earn and build trust a year before we even were sworn in and took office, I can't speak enough like the value and importance of that. Because I think it allows all of us to collectively build and develop long-lasting, profound relationships. We're going to have more impact as a result. But I got a chance to know Councilmember Woo on the campaign trail originally. For me, I was looking for someone who had a strong record of service in civic-wise and in the community as well. I was looking for someone with a strong, also ability to collaborate across differences. I guess collaboration is our buzzword for this council, but it's really, really important. It's not just a trite thing, box we're trying to check. And so I was really impressed, particularly with Tanya's record of collaboration. She has a strong CID background, but now she represents the entire city.
That's right.
And I think she is very well positioned to serve well in that role.
Yeah.
And look, someone who understands the importance of public safety as well, and who's ready, willing, and able to truly prioritize and immediately prioritize public safety. And for me, she checked all those boxes.
I guess that background noise, just to get back to it, I mean, business and labor, fighting for a candidate, whatever else, was that part of it? Was that in the back of your mind at all? That's what I wanted to ask about this.
I was aware of everything going on.
Okay.
Just like everyone else.
Yeah.
And everyone is entitled to develop their own views on things, and I understand that. But I will say, by law, we had some very strict requirements in terms of timing, how the process is set up to be governed. We had some flexibility around the edges in terms of implementation, but we had some very, very strict processes. And so I think under the legal and charter constraints that we had, we executed a fairly good, very transparent, and very open process. And for those reasons, I feel good about.
Great, thank you. And that forum that we had on Seattle Channel, thanks to City Club, that turned out really well. I thought that was a really good back and forth between those different people who were running there. I wanted to talk about some of the committee activity that's been going on here. Just getting started for the council. It sounds like it'll be during the first full week of February. Council President Nelson telling me that's what it's looking like here. Councilmember Saka, you're the Transportation Committee Chair. Councilmember Hollingsworth, Vice Chair here. I know we've been talking a lot about transportation on the campaign trail, and apparently you're the pothole king. I heard that during the swearing in when you're sworn in. I know you want to look at a lot of different things, transit, bikes, and all these things too. I guess, can you tell us about the priorities you're emphasizing in taking this Transportation Committee Chair role?
Yeah, it's a great question. So transportation is very critically important to my district. I represent West Seattle, South Park, Soto, Pioneer Square, and Georgetown. Part of my goal and vision in terms of implementation for the city is that let no other community in Seattle experience what we experienced in West Seattle with the protracted 2.5-year closure of the West Seattle Bridge. So it's a really, really, on the surface, simple but really important and potentially costly investments that we might need to make from a transportation perspective to get there. So it's not just, there's over 300 bridges in the city of Seattle, but under the 2021 audit, as you may know, we learned that there are a significant amount of them that are in a bad state of disrepair. So we need help. So doing things like that for my district not only benefits my district, but the people across the city. And I think we all sort of ran on this aspect of focusing on the fundamentals and basics. And so for me, that's bridge maintenance, road repairs. Potholes is a synonym for bridge maintenance, road repairs.
Fair, okay.
And sidewalks.
Okay.
Sidewalks, Brian.
I know we've been talking a lot about sidewalks, and we will talk some more about that.
Sure.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Hollingsworth, if you want to talk about transportation, please do, but I really would love for you to lay out some ideas for the committee you're leading, which is Parks, Public Utilities, Technologies. I know Councilmember Rivera is on that committee too. What are your top priorities with that?
Yeah, I'm lucky because all of the committees some of the committees I serve on, the one that I chair and the one that I vice chair, are all around infrastructure. And that's what we talked a lot about on the campaign trail. And in terms of transportation, 50% of the people in District 3 rely either on transportation, public transportation, light rail, buses. They walk, right? We have a very dense neighborhood. So we're going to be looking at, sidewalks, crosswalks, and ensuring that we have a lot of pedestrian safety as well. In addition to ensuring that we know that when we are planning out transportation routes and it's A to B, that line signifies a neighborhood. And so we want to also ensure that transportation is interwoven in the neighborhood, which I think is really important. In terms of parks, Seattle Public Utilities, and also technology, we're going to do some really cool creative things with parks. My dad worked for the Parks Department 35 years, so know the Parks Department very well. I get to sit on this side of it, working with AP Diaz and all the phenomenal city workers with parks. It's very important to us that we protect them, that we encourage our tree canopy and open spaces and keep them clean and safe.
Yeah, I wanted to ask specifically about park rangers, because that got a lot of headlines into last year. That program is expanding, and I know we're just starting here with this Councilmember Hollingsworth, but can you tell tell me what that program is going to look like, what you hope it achieves in terms of having more of these park rangers in our parks around the city?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that it's one thing that Councilmember Lewis, championed, and so it's going to be something that we're going to look into and understanding how the program's working, what the public, how their reaction to it is as well. Is it creating the type of impact that it's supposed to as well? So that's one thing that I know that on February 14th, our first meeting with Parks coming up as chair, that we'll be looking into a lot of the overview of the programs, one of those being the park rangers, to find out the impact of that program.
Okay, there's a Valentine's Day date to look forward to. Looking forward to that one. Councilmember Rivera, you're head of the Libraries, Education, and Neighborhoods Committee, has a lot going on. Councilmember Hollingsworth, a member of that committee too. I just saw one example here, Seattle Public Libraries coming out with a new strategic plan in the first quarter of this year, and that's just the start. If you want to talk about that, please do. I just wanted to talk about your approach to this committee role, please.
Well, my approach has been, I've already met with all the three of the department heads for each of those departments to find out from them what their concerns are, what they're working on. I've also scheduled more in-depth briefings with all three of those departments to learn more. For instance, libraries, I know public safety is a big issue in the libraries. Libraries are a big community hub for people. It's a place where our young people and our seniors go. As there's a social component, so it's not just about the books, though the books are great. And so talking to, Tom Fay about the public safety issues that they're experiencing in the library, because it's become also a public hub, apart from the community centers that we also have, which are parks.
Right.
And then, the education, for instance, we have a levy next year, the renewal to look at. And so digging into the current levy and the items that has funded and the outcomes for those as we're thinking about the next levy. And then Department of Neighborhoods for our district, Department of Neighborhoods, the Neighborhood Matching Fund is a really a popular program. It really has allowed our district to be able to put on activations, which during this post-pandemic recovery period have been really important to bring people together in the district, and people from outside of the district coming to the district for those activations. So all of this is what we'll be looking at and talking to departments more in depth about.
Looking forward to some more of that. Thank you very much. I received so many different emails and messages with questions for our new council members here. I wanted to try to get in as many as I can. Councilmember Saka, here's a transportation question from Eric, who writes this. There's been almost no progress, he says, on pedestrian and cyclist master plans. Could you mandate that we spend at least $1 on human-powered transportation for every $10 spent on transit? Eric sounds like he's concerned that Seattle's spending more on transit than on bikes and pedestrians. What do you tell him?
So I will commit to, if Eric or anyone else has any specific, concrete proposal from a policy perspective, I'm committed to considering it as we move forward and figure out what transportation is going to look like in Seattle on a going forward basis. We have a unique opportunity coming up this year for a new move levy. So looking forward to working with others to figure out what the contours of that and set what, like, this Vision Zero thing, I'll say, the Vision Zero death goal that we have in the city, we're not at all living up to that, and we're far from where we should be. And a huge chunk of that is the cycling and especially pedestrian deaths. So that's why, adding new sidewalk infrastructure. 24% of communities in Seattle residents don't have a sidewalk in their neighborhood. We need to change that. We need to fix that. We need to add more crosswalks. There's other investments that we can do to better live up to our Vision Zero goals. So I'm committed to listening and learning as we go through this process and making some real change.
Okay,
so.
Thank you for addressing that. And I know everybody here is committed to public safety. Councilmember Saka, you're the vice chair of that committee. But if I could, let me start this one with Councilmember Rivera, just mixed up a little bit. So Pat writes this. The latest stats report that violent crime has increased in Seattle, while property crime has decreased. I believe people have simply stopped reporting property crime. Are we doing enough on property crime? That's the question from Pat. Thank you very much for sending that in. Councilmember Rivera, what do you think?
I think we have a huge, and everyone knows, and we all ran on this, we have a huge public safety problem in Seattle across the board. And I think that when we say property crimes have decreased, I agree. I think people have stopped reporting because they're not getting responses back because we just don't have the staffing levels to be able to address when people report. And then also because of the staffing issues at SPD, they're only able to really prioritize 911 calls. And so some of these other types of crimes, they're not able to address it, which is why I supported the mayor's, and I continue to support the mayor's plan to hire 1,400 officers. We know that is proving difficult, but we do need to prioritize it and keep at it. And then we also need to look at exploring alternatives to policing to fill the gap between being able to find those more officers and what to do between now and then. And I'll say, public safety in our district is really huge. Just in the last couple weeks, we've had businesses on 35th. There's a car that drove into a small business. Right. And so small businesses are struggling because there's a lot of theft and crimes of this nature. And so we really need to put focus to that and see what we can do to fill that void, if you will, between now and when we're able to hire more officers. But it's a very real thing.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Hollingsworth, you're up here. A few headlines about this in the past couple weeks. Eric actually wrote this one, too. Had a couple good emails. Thank you, Eric. The South Lake Union Streetcar is running mostly empty and costing more than $20 per rider to operate. It's clearly a failed experiment, so why not shut it down? What do you think? Shut it down, put this new connector project in motion that's more than $400 million? There's a lot been talked about this.
Yeah, I know, and I know that was a hot button topic, understanding the streetcar and the South Lake Union and trying to figure out, should we spend our money on that? I talked about it during the campaign trail that I think we have other priorities in our city, transportation-wise, that I think are very important, from our sidewalks to our crosswalks to ensuring that, our roads repair, potholes, like just the basic functionality of our city. And so that's something I couldn't put my weight behind right now, and advocating for other things in our city to be prioritized.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Saka, another transportation question coming in. Robin is excited about the transportation levy, I think. Here's what she said. How will the new transportation levy help us cut greenhouse gas emissions and achieve the city's goal of reducing emissions by 82% by the year 2030 compared to the baseline in 2008? A very important levy. Your committee's working on this year. 30% of the city's transportation budget comes from it, as I know you know. Yep. Robin wants to know how you're going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, so thank you, Robin, for the question. Excellent one. So as transportation chair, one of my personal priorities is to make sure we have effective multimodal, transportation. So that means transit. We need to get as many people out of single occupancy vehicles as possible and into rapid transit, and that means we need to have better transit options. I also think that, when we talk about expanding transit service, for example, we can't have, focus on that without having a parallel conversation about how we're going to improve the public safety experience. I've talked to many constituents now and voters during the campaign that said, hey, I would ride public trans more or again, but problem is I don't feel safe. So we're going to have some difficult conversations coming up, but I'm committed to doing the right thing and making sure that we expand transit, preserve freight and cargo. That's really important too, by the way. That's kind of an unsung hero. It's the backbone of our economy. Reducing and better living up to our Vision Zero goals and targets, improving cycling infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure, all of it. It's a comprehensive approach.
Yeah, and I think public safety and public health are definitely intertwined with this issue for sure. I'm going to start wrapping up here. A deep thoughts email coming in here from Jimmy. Always sends good ones here. I'm going to go down the line, Councilmember Rivera, and we'll head on down here. Jimmy asks this: what role will self-reflection play in your growth as a city representative to consider new ideas that differ from your pre-existing ones? Jimmy, thank you for the question. Asking about open-mindedness when it comes to how you lead. Councilmember Rivera, how do you look at that?
I love this question because on the campaign trail, I talked a lot about the fact that I may not have all the answers. In fact, not that I may not, I do not have all the answers. And, I am clear that I'm here representing the constituents of the district, and I care very much to dialogue with the constituents so that I can represent their interests well. And as Councilmember Saka said just a few minutes ago, really working together with folks to bring solutions forward is important. And so my door will always be open, and I look forward to collaborating so that we can come up with some creative solutions to these huge challenges that we're facing.
Yeah, a lot of them at once. Councilmember Hollingsworth, some ideas about open-mindedness and leadership, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important for someone who's in a leadership role to be open to be able to change, to be open to actually having dialogue. I think we all know that we are servants of the community. We are here to serve. We are a bridge from our community to city council. Oftentimes we're the front porch of city government. And the beautiful thing about that is you're going to have a collection of different voices and people that are going to come to you with their own perspective. So you can be able to craft the best legislation, the best policy that will have the most meaningful impact. I know one thing that our office will be really important is that we have been so focused of passing policy at the city level that we have not really identified that has had the meaningful impact. So there's some things that maybe they don't need new policy. We just need to adjust them a little bit better so they can have the most meaningful impact.
Interesting. Thank you for that. Councilmember Saka, I'll let you wrap this up. This idea about self-reflection here, being open-minded, being a leader with some differing viewpoints that might come your way.
Love that. And I love everything my colleagues have said as well. And I'll emphasize plus one of both of that and also say, I also have a growth mindset, and like Councilmember Rivera, I don't purport to have all the answers every single time. But what I will commit to every single time is doing my research, doing the homework, listening to impacted communities, understanding their point of view, and making sure that whatever decision I do make is one that is 100% informed by all communities, because I represent a variety of interests, and I'm looking for opportunities to make sure all those interests overlap and align as much as possible in District 1. And people who know me from previous experiences professionally and in the community know I have a strong growth mindset. I'm always willing to listen, learn, and get better. And the one caveat there I'll say is, with the exception of principles. There are certain principles that, like we all hold true and near and dear. How that might show up is on the issue of public safety. Sure. I will listen to people who hold abolitionist views all day on public safety, but that is a view and a principle I do not hold, and is not going to show up in my own personal policy making. I believe there is a strong role for policing enforcement. It's not to say there's not also a role for police reform and police accountability or crime prevention, gun violence prevention, and intervention. All those things are important too. But on public safety, I believe in a holistic, comprehensive approach.
All right. We've had a lot of good conversation here. I appreciate it to all of you, and we will see you next time on Council Edition.